Welcome back to Scrubbed In. You may notice today's a Wednesday, yet we're still releasing a video. Well, it's a bonus special video for all you guys. And I'll tell you what it's about. It's about preparing to smash your medical school interviews. Initially we thought we missed the boat and we might prepare something later on, but we still have loads of people messaging us, asking loads of different questions. So we called Amz and we thought, you know what, let's quickly do something so you can all benefit. So let us know below what you think and how we can make it better. So, to start it off, congratulations with getting your medical school interviews. You're nearly there. You just need to do really well, smash exams, and we'll see you soon. First, how do we go? We'll talk about all the different bits about a medical school interview and then start giving you tips and tricks and how we went on it. So, the vast majority of medical schools, initially they did what was a panel interview where you used to go in front of 2 or 3 other medical directors, doctors, or some sort of clinical background who would grill you. So the question was, they'll grill you on your personal statement, you know, why you want to do medicine, why do you want to be a doctor, and all of that. And now I think a lot of those schools are transitioning to what we call it MMI, a multiple minute interview, where there are different stations with each station assessing a different skill, quality, characteristic, which we'll give a breakdown later on. And it means you are probably going to see, 7 or 8 different peoples rather than have a half an hour in front of 3 people that are there from the start to the finish. So I hope that gives a bit of a breakdown, but we'll go straight into it, which is probably the most important thing. So what do you want to talk about?
So what we'll do is we'll keep it succinct.
Fine.
We'll keep it succinct and we'll give sort of an X number of tips for our viewers so that when they're going to their interviews, they'll be able to smash it. And hopefully our tips will actually be applicable to almost any type of interview.
That's true.
So let's dive straight in. So number one, which with the way I prepare for any interview, and that will be for the interviews that we'll have coming up for our jobs as well, is that we have to know and expect certain types of questions, and then we have to then sort of be able to plan those questions. So we all know every single medical student should have at least prepared at the bare minimum the question for, why do you want to be a doctor? Why you? There's thousands of questions which you can find through just a simple Google search if you just type it in. What resource did you use for questions wise?
So I used the student room. So the student room, the forum was very good. I just trolled online, Google searches, what type of questions in medical schools, typical medical school questions. But something I did that was more fruitful was I managed to find people that went to King's, went to St. George's, and asked what type of questions do they usually ask, and got a bit of advice from them. Why? Because they've done the questions and the interview themselves. Secondly, they must have done well because they were medical students at the time. So speak to people in that medical school and get the questions and practice with those people if you can. Find medical students, especially the first and second years, because they're the most recent bunch of people. Contact them, ask them what type of questions, ask advice, and say, can I sit down with you for half an hour, just so I can practice these questions with you and I can kind of get an insight. So Google, there are loads of books now, you know, like the UK CAT book. There are books on 300 or so medical questions for medical school, and speak to students that went to the medical school you got the interview for. That's how I would say is the best way to identify some of the questions that will come up.
Yeah. So that was tip 1, identify the questions. For every single question that's out there, you should know what you can apply from your personality, your traits, your experience to those questions. And I don't mean by that you should have scripted answers. You shouldn't have blocked paragraphs where if they ask a different question, you don't know how to apply that. Example, if someone asks me, show me an example of resilience. One of my challenges of resilience is when I initially found it quite challenging in my BSc year. I'm able to apply that straight away. Say what exactly was the challenge? How did I overcome that challenge? What changes did I make? And what was the final outcome? So that's my point, which is just that I found the initial stages of my BSc quite challenging, and then I can now apply that to almost any answer that is around the theme of resilience. So I know a lot of people, what they do is literally just vomit out onto a piece of paper every single thing that they've ever done. work experience, their traits, their personality, and look to just develop each one so that you have grouped answers essentially that you can just actively sort of retrieve and use for any questions.
Once you've kind of practiced or got it written on paper, from this work experience I learned about time management. From studying biology I learned about resilience. From playing football I learned how to manage social life and academic life. It's very important you then start practicing with people. It's very important to kind of think, this is what I'm going to say, but never having to say it, or if it's the first time you ever say that answer aloud in front of a interviewer, you're going to get stuck. So practice with as many people as you can. That is my most important piece of advice. And even if you can't practice with someone, practice with the mirror. Because you need... Thinking and saying are two different things. You can think of an amazing answer, but when you realize you say it, you may be like, oh, you know what, that doesn't sound right.
Exactly.
But mostly it allows you to develop your tone, your pauses, the way you say certain words. If you speak really fast, if you speak really slow, practice with lots of people. And the best people to practice are initially with your friends and family. Once you've got a grip with the answer, then start practicing with medical students or people that have been through the system. And finally, if you do get the opportunity, practice with doctors, especially junior doctors, because then what it means, you get different layers and different depths of critical feedback. And you just develop and you know what it seems like, and they will ask you different types of questions. So practice with as many people as you can. Okay, moving on. What else do you want?
So with that as well, just to add on, so make sure with the people that you practice with that they actually positively give you criticism. And you have to be a person that's actually willing to accept that. There's a saying that leave the ego at the door when you come into practice, because it happens. I've done it myself where someone has given me feedback and said, oh, you've done that wrong, and I started to justify it. Nope, sometimes they're giving you positive feedback, see how it works, see how you can incorporate it. Obviously, if it's a certain personality trait that you love, that you think that it brings out your personality, then stick to it. There's loads of things that I say, nope, I'm doing it my way because I think that's the right way. But be accepting of feedback. So that's one thing.
And I think what goes with that, don't go to people that will be like, oh my God, you did really well, it's amazing, you're going to be the best doctor ever. It's very important you find people that are very good at giving you critique. Not only good critique, but negative critique. I know we're human, and it's human nature to not like to be said negative things, or not like, it's not nice hearing bad things about yourself, but sometimes you need to be like, oh, do you know what? I've got this one friend, he's always critiquing us, but do you know what? He does good critique. It's important, and it's something not only you need as a student, as a medical student, as a doctor, you need someone that critiques you very well and will outline things that you perhaps didn't do well, or that can be like, do you know what? You're too fast, or you're so harsh and abrupt. You mentioned something about you saw someone really ill. Why don't you lower your tone? Why don't you slow down? Why don't you take a pause? And that brings me on to my second point. The main thing is, when you're in an interview, it is an interview situation, and I said this to my cousin the other day, I said, you have control of the situation. When they ask you the question, as soon as that question finishes, the ball is in your court. So you need to compose yourself. You need to be confident. You take the pause. And I say it's better to take a pause for a second and then start. So, what do you want to do medicine? You pause and say, the reason why I want to do medicine, pause, say it like that. And they say treat it as if you're talking to someone. Don't think this is a interviewer and, I can't show my passion, or I can't show my enthusiasm. That's why you're doing medicine. Treat it as if, a conversation, or treat it as someone like a friend. Because that is the best way, once you notice and identify that, you can get across your passion and enthusiasm. Because you don't want to be all rigid and say, the reason I want to do medicine is because I like to help people and I saw this and that. Feel comfortable, and the mindset I believe for that is the power is in your hand, because his power stops as soon as he finishes that question.
Exactly.
He's not going to answer for you, so you control it. Be honest, do not lie. And if you check our first few episodes where we talk about our own personal interview experiences, about the personal statement, do not lie. And even if you don't know the answer, just say the truth and say, do you know what? I don't know, and leave it like that, rather than start making things up.
That's exactly what I did in one of my stations. I actually just said, I don't know. And then we just worked it out from there.
So don't lie. Be genuine, be passionate, and if you don't know something, put your hands up, because they are people, the interviewees, they have seen thousands of medical students before you and as well as after you. So they will very easily catch you out if they see you lying, or you're using things that someone else has written for you or said for you. So that's very important. I think you need to be conscious of.
100%. So to summarize that point, essentially what you're saying is practice, but practice that you're conversational in your approach to answering any questions. And remember, in an MMI especially, you have limited time, so you can't give an answer that's 10-15 minutes long. So at the same time, keep it conversational, keep it short, succinct, straight to the point, and powerful. That's the most important thing as well, isn't it?
Fine. One of the other things you need to do and remember is, especially with the MMI, even if you feel you haven't done that great on one station, move on to the next one, ignore it, forget it, and do your best. Don't be thinking about your previous station while in your new station, because it will just slow you down, or you'll be blank and you'll be so caught up about that previous one that you won't be able to perform your best and give it your best. So once you've done a station, leave it, ignore it, move on. And the advantage of MMI is the same interview doesn't see for the next half an hour. So one might be like, oh, do you know what, he didn't do that bad, but the other 9 might say he was amazing, and that will swing it your way. So don't get too caught up.
Exactly.
All right.
Moving on, another tip to come your way is make sure you actually also research the place that you're applying to. Make sure you know what they offer, because they often ask, why you and why should we accept you here at this university? What will you bring? And then you have to bring your personality, your experience, all of the things that you've done, and say why that will benefit them. Often when I'm asked that question, whether it's in job interviews or other interviews, the way I word my answer is that they would benefit from me being there. Even in my medical school interview, I remember saying something along the lines of, I will plan to do this with this society and set up this. And it is what I did. I do remember doing that. So remember, research about that university, what are their ethos and what are you possibly going to bring to them. And that's applicable to almost any interview.
Fine. On the topic of research current affairs and news. My one go-to advice has always been research current themes, affairs, especially with healthcare. So BBC Health, BBC News is always good. That's what I did, and it helped me in one of my interviews. In that moment in time when I had my interviews, I found out what the new budget was for health. I found that latest advances in medicine and curing cancer, whatever it is, it shows you're not so bogged down with medicine. You have a wider understanding of medicine as a whole in the healthcare system. So BBC News is a very good position to understand and do your research. So find out current affairs and recent news for the period within your interview date, and that is impressive, and you want to impress them. If you're competing with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people, this is what will make you stand out. So
some of the skills now you guys need to learn about what the university is particularly looking for. Number 1, communication. The same way Abdul was saying, can you display passion, enthusiasm in a short period of time when you got an interviewer with you only for 2 minutes? Can you get across all of that in a natural flow? Can you explain things? Other things other universities do is test your basic science. I know that some of the Oxbridges and all of those universities, they test your basic science, test you with a certain scenario. Practice clinical scenarios, very important, very, very important. They often give you 2 situations where you're put in a situation where you would do both things, i.e. save patient X and patient Y, but they say you can only pick one, or they say in which order. So you need to know how you make that decision. So they're testing judgment, your capability to make a decision as well. So we've said communication, your clinical judgment and decision-making skills, your attention to detail. So some of the questions that are handed out, some of the practice questions that are out there is, can you describe something that's put in front of you? Can you describe it in detail? Sometimes it can be pictures. There are cases where they've handed out pictures, a picture of just anything. It can be a picture of at the beach, or a person smoking, or a person drinking alcohol. Can you A, describe it? Can you B, infer appropriately? Can you do that? Literally just sit there, grab a photograph of something and just describe. See how many things you can pick up. They say a picture's worth 1,000 words. We'll pick them all out. And then go through your work experience. Identify don't just say work experience. Don't just say what you've done. What has each one taught you, and how have you developed and moved on from that?
The whole point of today
15 minutes.
was bonus interview was basically a video on basically how to smash your medical interviews in 15 minutes. We wish you the best of luck and let us know how you do, but we hope to see you on the other side.
Good luck, people.